I feel like diet culture sets you up to never be good enough.
Did you burn 500 calories on the treadmill today? No? Me either.
I mean, anybody can sit with us. We're just really not about diet culture.
But literally, happiness doesn't come from a low-calorie, high-intensity life. I actually do like carrots.
I do too. They're my favorite.
Welcome to the Fit Fueled Free podcast.
So basically, diets suck.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 68. I'm Danielle.
And I'm Jenna.
And today we're doing a myth-busting episode on different nutrition, fitness, and body myths. And before we dive into that, I just want to talk about Super Bowl commercials. So, Jenna, what were your favorite ones that you saw?
So I watched the whole thing, but I had my laptop out doing work, so I really only tuned in a little bit. But I just so happened to look up at the Cheetos one with Mila Kunis and Ashton Kutcher, and I don't know. I thought that was so funny.
That was really funny.
So I think that was my favorite. The only other one I saw today after the fact was the M&M's commercial with Dan Levy from Schitt's Creek, and I liked that one just because Dan was in it and I love him. I don't think I would have liked it if he wasn't in that, but those are actually like the only two I feel like I really paid attention to.
Okay. Well,
what about you?
After this, you have to look up the Michael B. Jordan one because it was like this creative team talking about how good the Alexa box looked, and they were like, I couldn't imagine anything better. And then she looks outside and sees this advertisement for Michael B. Jordan, and then she just starts fantasizing that he's her Alexa, and it is hysterical. That I love the Cheetos commercial, but that one had me geeking.
That's amazing. I didn't see that at all. I'll have to go back and watch it.
You have to go watch that one
later.
And there's also a pretty funny Doritos commercial with Matthew McConaughey in it.
I did see that one. Yes, I did see that.
Okay. I just love the Super Bowl literally for the commercials. It's my favorite.
Yeah, I know. I feel that. And the snacks.
Yeah, and the snacks. So speaking of snacks, I'm just gonna go ahead and dive in with my first myth.
Let's do it.
Okay, so if I'm bloated, I ate something unhealthy or that my body cannot tolerate. So I think we have an epidemic of misusing the word bloating, because there certainly is true bloating, where your abdomen is distended. It's very uncomfortable. You likely have pain and gas. Also, just the normal process of eating is going to kind of change the size of what you notice your stomach to be. So when we wake up in the morning, we're going to be dehydrated and we're going to be our lightest weight and we're going to feel our thinnest, likely. Mm-hmm. And as you start to consume fluids and food throughout the day, I always hear people telling me they feel increasingly bloated throughout the day, but I'm not surprised to hear that because every several hours, likely, we're eating, we're continuing to drink. So that process that your body's doing to keep you alive and to break down food is going to cause some degree of bloating. I think we all could think of that as a food baby. That is normal. Some people's bodies are going to show that more than others, but just kind of calling out the realities of what bloating really is. And so the other thing is that we like to demonize salty foods or fatty foods. Alcohol certainly attributes to bloating. And those are all legitimate things. And also fiber-rich foods, like cruciferous vegetables like Brussels sprouts and broccoli, and just general fiber rich foods, nuts and seeds, and also artificial sweeteners, which are found in any flavored protein powder, is going to have some kind of sugar something or other that your body doesn't break down, because protein powder companies generally, sometimes they don't really want to add sugar because that's something
Mm-hmm.
that consumers don't want in their protein powder. So all these things that we consume in a quote unquote clean eating healthy diet are going to increase gas and bloating. I personally notice the more fruits and vegetables and fiber rich foods I consume in my diet, the more I notice that I pass gas more often throughout the day, and that's pretty normal. So if it's causing severe pain and like your abdomen is truly distended, like it's hard to the touch, and not because you're flexing your abdominal muscles, that could be a sign of true distension. And if it's happening
Mm-hmm.
all the time after everything you eat, and causing true discomfort, just certainly there could be some intolerances going on. And so that I'm not saying that there never is an issue with bloating, but also with women on their menstrual cycle, um, we're likely to retain more water. That's like in every Midol commercial that used to play, like symptoms of bloating, like it's just your body going through its natural fluctuations. And so unless you have reason to be truly concerned, that something is going wrong with like severe discomfort and pain, it is possible that it is just general digestive processes working, which is actually a really good thing, but we really demonize that. And so I encourage you to kind of reframe that. And also, we are in a time in our wellness culture where it's really readily available to get tests done on intolerances that you may have without even any like reason to necessarily. It's kind of just like getting more information when you may never have even had any genuine gut trouble. And I think that's just really trendy right now. And while I do think it is nice to have access to information, we just have to be careful, whose hands we end up in, because it's really easy to come across articles that are telling you to eliminate the FODMAPs in your diet, um, just from researching something really as gentle as bloating, to be honest. And
Yeah.
so we just have to be careful, because elimination diets, if you're predisposed to an eating disorder and you don't have proper help, that's actually really dangerous. And even outside of if we're going to get an eating disorder, just the amount of frustration and just stress that this causes without having like proper help and being truly recommended to do that could be, because you also may never get an answer from an elimination diet, because there's a lot of distress our bodies can have that actually don't have anything to do with food. So I'm certainly not anti finding answers, not at all, just not jumping to that conclusion that because your body changes throughout the day, that guarantees that something is truly wrong. Um, yeah, that's that.
No, I'm glad you touched on that, because I think people feel like if their stomach, at least you see it a lot on social media, it's like almost this message: if your stomach is anything other than flat, it's like something's wrong or people are freaking out. And I can attest to that. Years ago, I mean, granted, I've had stomach issues in my lifetime, but like any noticeable difference, I would go into like worst case scenario mode, because I was like, oh, something's wrong. Like I shouldn't be this bloated, when in reality, it's like, oh, well, that's your body's like normal way of digesting food.
Yeah. And I think too, the other issue is that when we see images of people in our culture, in any media, Jenna and I can attest to this, that people who are taking photos like that are not eating, hardly at all leading up to this kind of shoot. And I mean, you can hear stories, really any podcast I listen to where celebrities talk about things they have to do for film or for shooting, like
Mhm,
they're not eating and over exercising. So like we have
mhm,
this perception that we're just supposed to like look at this thin ideal, and now it's this fit ideal. It's not only just thin anymore, we're supposed to also be built, and that we're just supposed to always like look like these people in pictures that we're being shown all the time. And I think that's where the whole like before and after thing was born, where people would like flip their like wouldn't flex and like flip their pants down, which kind of perpetuates some other issues. But I think that's where that was born from, is just showing people like, hey, this isn't just because you see this and I have all these followers does not mean that my body always looks like this. And also, like, it's okay if your body doesn't look that at all, but that's our
mhm.
culture.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. My first fitness myth is the idea that the more sweat you lose during your workout equates to the more fat that you're going to lose. And what else goes hand in hand with that is like the sweating more equals a greater workout. And that is something that I hear all of the time. And so I think it's important before we even kind of get into this is to just talk about why our bodies sweat, because I feel like there is a little bit of misinformation surrounding the topic. But basically, scientifically, what it comes down to is like sweat is your body's way of like getting rid of heat, and it's the way that your body tries to regulate your temperature and get back to like a level of homeostasis. Because we say this all the time, like our bodies like want to be at this like like this level of like homeostasis, and so they're going to do everything they can to keep us alive and keep us functioning properly. And so obviously when you're working out, when you're moving your body, when your heart rate is getting elevated, that's going to cause your temperature to go up, and so your body in response to that is going to start to sweat to try and cool you off. And so when your body does sweat, it literally is releasing water and salt, which is evaporated in the attempt to cool you. Okay. And so a lot of people, I think, also have this idea because I've heard this a lot as well. Like people are like, oh, well, like I step on a scale after like a really intense, sweaty workout and I lose weight. But then it's like later in the day or the next day, like the weight comes back. Like, why is that? And it's like, well, because this weight that you're checking for is water weight that you've lost, because you like if you think about it for a second, like it makes so much sense. It's like if you literally just like expelled all of this water from your body to cool you off, of course if you step on the scale you're going to be like lighter, so it's not, there's this idea that like you have to sweat so much in a workout in order for it to like be effective or for it to count or for you to lose more fat or whatever it is, because people think that that's going to like that makes the scale go lower, and then like, oh, that it's just like this perpetuating cycle.
Also,
And so
there's that stupid quote about how sweat is my fat's tears, or it's my
yep,
fat crying or whatever.
yep,
And so like I know people don't think that their fat cells are literally crying, but like that kind of BS just adds fuel to the fire.
yep, mm-hmm, yep. I know. I've seen that meme 1,000 times, and I'm like, this is such like misinformation. It's insane. Um, and so just to like talk about things that like are going to affect the amount that you sweat in a workout, like the temperature and the place that you're working out, whether you're working out inside, whether you're working out outside, whether you're going for a run on like a really humid day, or whether you're like taking a hot yoga class. Also, what's going to affect the amount that you sweat is going to be like how fast or like quickly you're moving, like how hydrated or even dehydrated were you before you decided to like engage in this type of physical activity. What kind of clothes are you wearing? Obviously, the heavier clothes, the more clothes you're wearing during a workout, the more you're going to sweat, because the higher your body temperature is going to get. And also it can come down to like simply genetics. Like some people just sweat more than others. Like I have a couple of friends who they can go in a cycle class and like they really they'll work their butts off, but like they don't sweat that much. And then I have other people who 5 minutes into like a strength workout, when their heart rates haven't become super elevated yet, they're like dripping wet. And so it's kind of like when you think of it like that, it's like it kind of just puts it into perspective. And so
Sorry, I just keep having thoughts.
very good.
I've heard people specifically, like we all know people that like run in sweat pants or like put the trash bag on, but like I've heard people specifically will only work out in hotter environments because they feel like that is causing them to work harder.
Mhm.
But actually it's just making you more dehydrated.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. And I'm not shaming anyone who thinks
No.
like this, because for so long, like I played soccer my entire life. So like after a game, I was gassed. Like I was really sweaty. And so for the first couple of years that I got into like fitness after college and after playing soccer, I will admit, yes, I did have the same mindset. Like, oh, I didn't sweat in this workout. Like I didn't work out hard enough. Like I specifically remember a time I went to a workout with a friend, and we were there for an hour, but I felt like I had barely, like we weren't moving quick, like it wasn't a high intensity workout. I barely sweat. I came home and I went for a run afterwards because I was like, I need to feel accomplished and I need to feel like I sweated, and like I like, if I work out, I might as well like make sure that it counts. And so no shame if you've thought like that your entire life, because it is ingrained in us. And especially like if you're an athlete, you're going to have to like unlearn a little bit of that. But like the idea that like you have to sweat a ton in order for it to be a good enough workout or for it to count, like doesn't even scientifically make sense. Because if you want to like talk super technical and say that like, oh, I lose more fat when I sweat more, technically speaking, like when your body is actually pulling fat for energy, it's actually when you're at like a lower intensity type of working out. Like your body favors fat when you're at about like 50% of your capacity. So that right there just kind of debunks the whole like, oh, I have to sweat a ton through a HIIT workout, because that's the only way like my body's going to lose fat, if you want to like talk like in terms of like science.
Yeah, and also when you're dehydrated, your performance decreases, so you're not able to put out as much work.
Right.
So it's just, yeah, and when I'm clearly have the tone of rolling my eyeballs, for people who are listening and not watching us, I agree with Jenna's sentiment. It's no shame or judgment. It's just my infuriation at our whole entire culture that has caused people so much pain, because of this just like misinformation around the thin ideal.
Yep.
There's some really good segues in this episode, I'm realizing, because we were talking about losing more fat, and I want to talk about the myth that having fat on your body is unhealthy. So a lot of people want to argue that it's okay to have fat, but not too much, quote unquote. I am never going to play that game, because we don't get to accept bodies till at a certain point. All bodies are attached to human life, real living souls, okay? So I don't play that game. I do want to talk about how fat is essential to our body. So it helps protect our organs. It is literal cushioning. It keeps us warm. It is a place for us to tap into energy, like Jenna was just talking about. That like low and slow movement. We can use fat for energy, which is honestly part of why when we get in a perpetual cycle of weight loss, our set point gets driven up, because we need fat for protection. And so when our body thinks we're threatening that, it's going to cause us to hold more. It helps and protects our hormone and immune function. Women need to have higher body fat than men, because it is certainly your choice whether or not you want to use your body to create babies, but that is what, like, anatomically, our bodies are wired to be able to do that. And also, I understand that not everyone is actually able to have kids. So when I say it's your choice, I understand that fertility is not your choice. But I just meant I'm not assuming that all women want to use their bodies to have babies. Anyway, that's a whole nother issue. But also, as we age, it's protective to have more body fat. And that is something that, like, no one ever talks about. The BMI scale is trash, but there's actually like different numbers that get used for a geriatric population or an older population because you're going to be at risk if you are frail as an older person, because if you get sick, you are less likely to be well than someone who has more weight. It is protective. And I just find it frustrating that we only hear about how fat is so bad, whether it's in well, right now it's trendy to eat fat, but because we're trying to burn it. So like, we just don't ever talk about those positive things. And so there is, for those of you who are not familiar with Health at Every Size, I know we talk about it and we did one episode on it, but this is really something that goes along with our core beliefs as a unit of podcasters and women who want to help dismantle diet culture, is that Health at Every Size movement. And so if you haven't read the book, I would encourage you to at least check out some articles. And there's some particular parts of this article that I'm going to put in the link, put the link in the episode description. But Linda Bacon is truly wonderful at describing and using research also. It's not just opinion, which is really important. So it is also true that members of marginalized groups are more likely to be fat, but it's a false leap of logic to assume, based on that association, that fat causes metabolic disease. Too many other factors are lost when we simply conflate weight and health and close our minds to the other, more pernicious effects at work. So this is what we were talking about just a couple episodes ago with the social determinants of health. I'm going to read just one more paragraph, but I really encourage you guys to check out this article. So before we can acknowledge the damage it does, it helps to understand that our collective concern about fat is strongly influenced by aesthetic and moral judgments. Try the implicit attitudes test to see just how deeply this bias runs. So she's linking the implicit bias test. I think it's from Harvard. Let me see when I open it, but you can take that and it actually is really eye-opening. Yeah, it's from Harvard, the implicit bias test. Okay. These attitudes affect medical care, the reporting of science, the type of research that gets funded, reinforcing a pseudoscientific rationale centered on weight control as if we're evidence-based. As if we needed any more social stigmas, weight discrimination has been outpacing even race and gender discrimination. Deploring fatness rather than leading to improved health for fat people worsens health for all of us and increases inequalities. Stigmatized people are often sicker, and that matters because we're just making this connection without having causation. So I really, really encourage you to read up on this further because it's really mind-blowing because there's really once you start to dig into this, there's really no good argument on the other side. People will fight you on it, but it's good to be armed with this knowledge, one for yourself and also to be able to provide some legitimate information. So it's unfortunate that just like the fat acceptance movement was shamed because we're like, oh, we're accepting unhealthy bodies. So like in our society, just wanting other people to not feel like shit about themselves is not good enough. And it's nice to have science that backs that up, because if we're going to argue that it's unhealthy, we have lots of information on the contrary, that having fat on your body in whatever varying degree does not mean that you are inherently unhealthy. Okay.
Let me move on.
Yes, you can go.
Okay, so
here.
The next fitness myth that I want to kind of take apart is the idea that it actually kind of relates to the first one, but it's this idea that calories burned in a workout equates to like the effectiveness and the like intensity of a workout. And so I think what we need to first do is get out of the mindset that a quote unquote good enough workout only happens when we burn X amount of calories, which I said basically about the sweat as well, because like that's crap. And you know, the exercises that, if you're tracking your workouts like with a watch or a fitness, any type of calorie tracker, the exercises that are going to show a higher calorie burn on that watch or on that tracker are going to be more cardiovascular based workouts, such as running, spin, hit workouts, anything that is constantly moving and getting your heart rate up and keeping it higher. But just because you choose running over a yoga class, like there's no scale to kind of tell you like what was a good enough workout. And if that's the way that you're thinking, I would really encourage you to kind of take a step back and challenge those thoughts, especially if you're someone who's trying to like break away from diet culture, because that right there is a diet culture lie telling you that, you know, one type of movement is better than the other, or like is going to be like a better workout, because I don't believe that there is one workout that's the best or is going to be better than anything else, because we're all so different and we all need a different approach, and all of us are going to enjoy and benefit from a vast variety of exercise. So wanted to say that. And so typically I think the reason why people get so caught up with this calorie burn is because diet culture also encourages us to focus on what do we lose as opposed to like what can we gain. So like we're constantly thinking about like, okay, how many, like what calories am I burning? How much weight am I losing? Like how much food can I restrict? Like the focus is on a loss of things. And so something that I've found to be super helpful for myself and also people that I work with who are trying to like move in this other direction is like focus on what can you gain. So like energy from exercise, improve sleep from exercise, like better endurance, flexibility, stability, balance, all of these things, which your watch isn't going to tell you. And so typically the reason that, you know, people are getting so caught up in like the calorie burned idea is because while I don't believe that you have to be the smallest or fittest version of yourself to be happy, I think that at this point is pretty clear. But typically the people who are so obsessive about the calories burned are looking for I'm trying to like be very careful with how I word this, are looking or like hoping to have like gain a certain physique. And so they're trying to reach this certain physique through all of these high intensity cardio exercises, such as running, such as spin classes. But then they get frustrated because they're doing all these things, trying to burn like as many calories as they can, yet they're not seeing these results that they want. And so again, I do not believe that you have to be the smallest or fittest version of yourself in order to be happy or even enjoy movement. But if we're talking science, the look that a lot of these people are looking for, which is like you were saying, like this built look, this more like muscular based aesthetic, is not going to be achieved through cardio. It's not going to be achieved through these workouts that burn all of these calories. Scientifically speaking, it's going to be through more resistance based, more strength training, which sometimes on your watch isn't going to show up as that high calorie burn. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so just to kind of like put it into perspective from a science-based, like with a science-based approach, for those of you who are searching for those results, yet you're going about it through these high intensity cardio bunny, for lack of a better word, like spin class methods, but you're frustrated. It's because that right there should be the proof as well that like the higher calorie burn exercises aren't always going to be the thing that's going to give you this result that you want. And again, I do not preach like you have to have results. You don't have to go into exercise with that intent. Like that's not going to ever make you happy if that is the only thing that you are getting into fitness and exercise for. But I think like taking a step back, and I've shared this before, like I've taken my watch off sometimes for workouts when I've gotten like caught up in this, like, oh, I have to do this, like I have to reach X amount of calories, because anything that is basically in your head telling you like, oh, I have to do this, or like I should do this, is going to be wrapped up in a diet culture bow.
Yeah.
I said this actually today on Instagram. And so just to like give you like a tangible example, like if you are someone who is doing any type of like strength training, resistance-based training, if you're comparing calories that you've burned on a leg day versus calories you've burned on an upper body day, you're going to probably burn more calories, air quotes here, on the leg day as opposed to the upper body day. But just because the watch shows that you burn more calories on leg day doesn't mean that like your leg day workout was better than the upper body workout, you know? Like say you go into both workouts, you give the exact same amount of energy, you spend the exact same time doing the lower body workout versus the upper body workout, that calorie difference it's going to be pretty different. It's not going to be the same at all. And so if you're only basing off like, oh, an effective workout or like a good enough workout on the amount of calories that you burn, you're going to be super frustrated. You're probably going to run yourself into the ground. And it's not going to be enjoyable for you because you're focusing on like all these, like how much can I lose, and not focusing on like all of the incredible and amazing and other beneficial things that you do gain from moving your body. And also the like more shape you're in, like the less like if you're working out for like the first time, or like you're in like a season of like just getting into like a new form of workout, your body has to adapt. And so you probably are going to burn more calories on like the perspective of a watch because it's new and your body is adjusting, and like all of your systems and everything internally have to adjust to that. And so you're technically going to burn more calories on a watch compared to someone who's been doing it for years. But that doesn't mean like one is working out harder or better than the other, you know?
Yeah. I just love the facts that you just spit out. That's why I'm smiling over here.
Okay, I was like, did I?
No, I'm like, oh, this is good content. I love it. I love what you said about we're focused on what we have to lose and not what we can gain. And I've never, if I've heard it exactly that way, it never like clicked as being such a helpful way to describe things. So I love that.
Yeah.
I think that needs to be our episode quote.
Well,
for sure.
Yeah. I get so like passionate about this stuff, so I like fumble over my words, so hopefully like everything made sense, because I get like brain blasts and I just want to like spit it all out at once, and then sometimes thoughts get like intertwined. But
no, I think you did great. I love when you talk about the fitness because you just like go ham and it's so lovely.
Well, because it's so frustrating, because it's things that I bought into and believed for years, and it's like what I believe pushed me into like the place that I was at. And so if there's anything I can do to prevent anybody from believing those same lies, I'm like, I'm going to be a broken record till the day that I die if that's what it takes, because like these ideas that diet culture impresses on the fitness industry, it's just crap, and I am tired of it.
Yeah. And I think we have to be broken records because we've all been immersed in this culture to varying degrees since we were born. I mean,
Mhm.
people Facetune their babies, like, and toddlers now, like, know how to take selfies. So it's like, it's just, it's so pervasive. It
Mhm.
already was pervasive, and now the more access we have to seeing ourselves and others, I think it's getting worse. I don't know if we sound like old people
Yeah.
when we say that, but I think that it is because of the access to
Mhm.
those things.
Mhm.
But no, I think we have to just keep saying it over and over because we've been hearing the opposite forever and ever. So
Yeah.
I mean, how long did it take both of us to really like start
Right.
to? I made a meme about that today. Like, when it first clicks, like, what's wrong with diet culture? It like opens all this, but I
Mhm.
mean, we're on our 68th episode of this podcast because there's always something to keep talking about because it just never ends. And
Yeah.
that's not to
Mhm.
be like pessimistic, but just to really shed light on it. So I think we just have to keep being broken records.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have more on our doc, but I think that was like a good episode. Do you think? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. I want to know what your favorite Super Bowl commercial was. So you should DM us or email us just because I like talking to you guys and I love Super Bowl commercials. So anyway, you can find us on Instagram at Fit Fueled Free, and then our personal pages. Mine is Dietitian Danny Cast and Jenna's is Jen Ep Fit. If you haven't checked out her amazing workout app, you should go to jenepfit.com and get some more information, or just click the link in her bio on Insta. And then our Gmail is fitfueledfree@gmail.com. And we, as always, appreciate ratings, reviews, share us so your friends can learn about us, watch us on YouTube, whatever way you prefer to consume our content. But we super appreciate you and can't wait to talk to you next week.
Bye, guys.